This is the newsroom for Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. In the headlines, the Guyana Police Force has offered a $3 million reward for the murder of the Berbice boys. But prominent attorney Nigel Yu says the force has failed in its attempts to solve the crime and is suggesting the help of a team from Argentina. A 92-year-old man is among two more Covid-19 deaths, pushing the death toll to 130. It was high drama on Kwame and Thomas streets after the police caught two suspects who robbed a man at gunpoint in broad daylight. The APNU-AFC issues an ultimatum for Parliament to publicize the tourism minister's U.S. renunciation certificate. And in sport, the Guyana Football Federation is in consultative mode on the best way to restart local football. With the news, I'm Kurt Campbell. We're glad you could join us. First up, family members of teen cousins Joel and Isaiah Henry have lost confidence in the ability of the Guyana Police Force to solve the gruesome murders of the boys. Their attorney, Nigel Yu, led the charge on Tuesday, urging support for an Argentine forensic anthropology team to come to Guyana to probe the murder. Yu said that the police reward of $3 million signals its failure to solve the crime. Prominent attorney-at-law Nigel Yu, who is representing the interests of the Henry families in the murders of teen cousins Joel and Isaiah Henry, said on Tuesday that the local police investigators and by extension the regional security team have failed in their attempts to solve the murders. As such, he's suggesting that a capable team from Argentina, who indicated willingness to come here, investigate the murders. His comments, which were made during a virtual press conference with the Henry family, came hours after the Guyana Police Force offered a reward of $3 million to any person or persons who can provide information leading to the arrest and prosecution of perpetrators of these gruesome murders. Yu said the award offered by the police is an admission of failure, that they are unable to solve the crime with their present means.
I think the fact that first of all, the timing of the offer of the award was after the Henry family decided that they had to hold a press conference. So this, I don't think is entirely an unprompted event. But more importantly, I think the fact that they're offering a reward is an admission of failure and an admission that they are unable to solve the crime with their present means, and therefore they're hoping that by a financial incentive that somebody will come forward.
Asked about his impression of the work done by the RSS team, which was brought here by President Irfan Ali to support the police, Yu said the fact that the RSS reposed full confidence in the work of the police force says a lot about its own capacity. He said instead of offering the $3 million reward, the authorities should secure the best available forensic experts to investigate the ghastly murders. The attorney has joined the family in recommending that the government offer financial support that would allow for an Argentine forensic anthropology team to come to Guyana.
No. We will continue to press and advocate and attempt to persuade everyone that it is critical that the Argentine people come. This event, these murders have left an open, gaping wound in the Guyanese society. It's not healing. It is not likely to be healed unless this is solved. This is not, I hate to use the term, your regular common garden murder. This is an open, gaping wound that is getting septic. And unless every effort, demonstrably so, is made to have this solved, will be a problem.
The team is asking for $4 million in professional fees, with the exception of travel, food, and board. They've also asked for an additional US $1,000 to expedite the shipping of equipment that they would need. Yu said while the police have welcomed the involvement of the team, there have been no response from the Minister of Home Affairs after several letters were written. Family members said when the issue was raised with President 2 weeks ago, he didn't give a positive answer and also reposed confidence in the RSS team. Yu said, as it is now, there are many doubts in relation to the investigation done by the Guyana Police Force. He said the police are yet to locate the primary crime scene. The trousers that Joel was wearing was never sent for forensic examination. The missing slipper for Isaiah was never found. And young rice, not ready for harvesting in a nearby field where the bodies were found, were harvested before police combed the area. The mutilated bodies of Isaiah 16 and Joel 18 were found in the Cotton Tree Backlands, West Coast Berbice on September 6. The killers carved out a huge X in Isaiah's head while they cut open Joel's chest. A post-mortem examination found that they both died from hemorrhage and shock due to multiple incised injuries, including severed spines. Approximately 27 persons were arrested during the course of the investigation, but all were released due to lack of evidence. On September 14, the police determined that the boys were murdered somewhere else and then dumped in the backlands of Cotton Tree. Subsequently, a total of 75 ranks drawn from Region 5, the Major Crimes Unit, and the Guyana Police Force, led by Region 5 Divisional Commander and Lieutenant Colonel, along with government pathologist Dr. Nihal Singh, combed the backlands of number 2 and 3 on the west coast of Berbice with the hope of finding the area where the teen cousins were killed. Mass protests erupted following the killings. It was during those protests that 17-year-old Harris Singh was killed. The police have not been able to arrest anyone in connection with his murder, and Hughes, who is also representing the Singh's family, plans to hold a separate press conference soon to deal with this investigation. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. We tell you now that 2 suspects in a daring mid-morning robbery on Tuesday have been arrested following a collaborative effort between the police and a private security officer. According to a police source, the 2 suspects, one of whom was armed, accosted a male outside the Oasis Cafe on Carmichael Street, Georgetown, and held him at gunpoint. The victim was relieved of some valuables by the thieves, who then attempted to make good their escape. The incident was witnessed by a nearby private security officer who, on instinct, decided to give chase behind the suspects along Quamina Street. The police source said that while in pursuit of the men, the security officer notified a motorbike patrol and informed the 2 ranks, who then took up the chase and apprehended the 2 suspects. Warning shots were fired into the air by the police before the men were cornered in 2 different locations and arrested. One of them escaped into a yard on Thomas Street and in a bid to escape, but was arrested there. Police later spent hours searching for the gun used to commit the crime. The police sought assistance from a vagrant to search a drain in front of the mental health unit on Quamina Street, where it was reported that the suspect discarded the weapon. The search came up empty-handed. The suspects have been taken into police custody as investigations continue. 2 more persons died from COVID-19 on Tuesday, taking Guyana's overall death toll to 130. The Ministry of Health reported that the latest fatalities are a 77-year-old female from Region 2, Pomeroon, Supernam, and a 92-year-old man from Region 1, Barima Waini. These persons died while receiving care at a medical facility. The Ministry of Health reported the 2 additional deaths mean that 4 persons have died for this month thus far, while 44 persons died in the month of October, the deadliest month recorded. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health on Tuesday recorded the lowest number of positive COVID-19 cases in weeks. 7 new cases were recorded from 264 tests. This brings the total number of confirmed cases since March to 4,245. 6 cases were recorded in Region 4, pushing the overall to 1,983, and 1 case was recorded in Region 3. Region 1, which saw a spike in cases over the last few weeks, did not record any new cases for the 2nd consecutive day. There are 9 patients in the COVID-19 intensive care unit at the Georgetown Public Hospital, 73 in institutional isolation, and 712 in home isolation. To date, 130 persons have died, with 2 additional deaths reported on Tuesday, and 3,320 persons have recovered. When the newsroom returns, the APNU-AFC issues an ultimatum for Parliament to publicize the tourism minister's U.S. renunciation certificate. And after years of advocacy, hemp activists believe legalization may come sooner than later. Stay tuned. You're watching the newsroom. As many Guyanese continue to face unemployment due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government on Tuesday said it will be creating a minimum of 500 jobs. As a result, some 100 contracts were signed between small businesses and the Ministry of Public Works to clean up communities along the coastland. Isanela Patwa has the details.
Of the 100 contracts awarded on Tuesday at the Artuchon Conference Center, the majority are small businesses which are managed by a family or at least 3 persons. Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, stated that the government has recognized that small businesses have taken a great hit due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and some have even closed down. The contracts were signed after a bidding process to clean up sea defenses and roads in communities in Regions 3, 5 and 6, along with a few hinterland communities. Minister Indar said the contracts will last for 2 months, November and December, and will employ a minimum of 500 persons.
So what we had was a mass problem throughout Guyana where people didn't have work. Each person here might and should employ about 5 persons to do the weeding. Because of the contract, the size and the lots that you've been awarded, each person here would at least hire about 5 persons to do the weeding. Some of them are the sea defense, some of them are the road shoulders. So this simple gesture, this simple move, simple strategy, after this signing today, will put 500 persons back to work.
Additionally, the majority of contracts were also signed by new contractors. The minister further explained that the government received over 600 bids, but only 100 met the criteria. The business owners were urged to do a proper job in order to secure their position for future contracts. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanela Patwa.
The opposition APNU-AFC has given the Clerk of the National Assembly, Sherlock Isaacs, a 24-hour deadline to submit the Certificate of Renunciation of U.S. citizenship by Minister of Tourism, Industry and Commerce, Onej Walrand. If the clerk does not adhere to the request of the APNU-AFC within that time frame, then it plans to file legal proceedings to prevent this flagrant breach of the Constitution. In a lawyer's letter sent to the Clerk of the National Assembly, leader of the opposition Joseph Harman, it was stated that the APNU-AFC is still awaiting a response from Mr. Isaacs to an October 25th letter which requested the certificate. The coalition, through its lawyer, Senior Counsel Royce Ilford, said the information released by Walrand, and which is in the public domain, indicates that she was not qualified to be appointed as a Minister of Government and or a Member of Parliament. Ford is also an APNU-AFC Member of Parliament. The APNU-AFC said the clerk's failure to respond to its letter is most untenable and unacceptable and constitutes a violation of its obligation to uphold the Constitution. Walrand in late October confirmed that she had renounced her U.S. citizenship before the first sitting of the National Assembly on September 1, 2020, but she did not provide a specific date. According to the Tourism Minister, she wrote the U.S. Consular Office on October 18, 2020, renouncing her citizenship to that country with immediate effect and complied with the process by August 27. The minister was not a candidate for the People's Progressive Party Civic in the March 2, 2020 elections, but was selected to be a technocrat minister, which basically means that she has no voting power in the National Assembly. The issue of dual citizenship came up in 2019 after former AFC member Mr. Yesu Persaud crossed the floor in favor of the then opposition PPPC in a no-confidence motion against the APNU-AFC government in December 2018. Following legal challenges, the court ruled that a person holding dual citizenship was not entitled to be a member of the National Assembly. Activists who have spent years lobbying for the legalization of industrial hemp in Guyana are hopeful that they have reached the end of a bumpy road. The Guyana hemp industry says it has received a positive nod from the People's Progressive Party government and hopes that parliamentarians from both sides would see the value and pass legislation to open up the multi-billion-dollar industry here. After 4 years of dedicated and serious lobbying and millions of dollars spent on education awareness, the Guyana hemp industries had hoped that the legalization of industrial hemp would have already been achieved. And while the item is still outstanding, lobbyists for the cause are rejoicing that legislation of industrial hemp in Guyana may come sooner than later. Co-chair of the Guyana Hemp Industries, Michael Curtin, recalls the efforts of himself and colleagues over the last 4 years, reminding that under the previous APNU-AFC government, a number of letters and documents were submitted in hopes to move the process forward.
I must confess that as soon as the new government was sworn in, I officially wrote His Excellency the President, who replied in a matter of hours, instructing that the Attorney General be looking into the matter. We have had meetings with the Attorney General, and we have submitted a feasibility study on his request on the viability of an industrial hemp industry in Guyana, which is supposed to be going to Cabinet tomorrow.
Curtin and the Guyana Hemp Industries have high hopes that the government will give permission to carry out a 10-acre trial project in each of the 10 administrative regions of Guyana. He said farmers are excited to plant hemp because of the returns, which are estimated to be far higher than rice and cash crops.
Now, the Guyana Hemp industry is ready and willing to go in starting to cultivate hemp in Guyana. At the moment, we have on order seeds, some processing units to process the plant into oil, and our sister company, Badesi Hemp Group in New York, they are ready and willing to go as soon as we get the okay. I must say, as of this morning, the Guyana Hemp Industries received over 10 interests of international investors who are ready to come to Guyana. One as far as Japan.
He was joined by Ras Kent Hollingsworth and Tim B. Hendricks from the Guyana Hemp Industries, who both echoed appreciation for the work done by the Attorney General. They too are excited that their job of advocacy will soon come to an end and they will be able to take part in the actual planting of industrial hemp here.
You know, thanks to Almighty God for keeping us alive to see this day.
Just thanks again to the government and the Attorney General for giving us a listening ear.
Currently, there are 25 groups in Guyana, and all of them are now rejoicing with the new developments under this government. Kurt Campbell, Newsroom. The government last month ordered 20,000 rapid COVID-19 antigen tests, which are expected to arrive in 3 weeks. These tests, which is touted as one of the best ways to diagnose COVID-19, will be deployed to hinterland communities. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony on Tuesday provided an update.
I expect that we'll be receiving some soon. Maybe in another 2 to 3 weeks we should be able to get those antigen tests. And as you know, they're different from antibody tests because this would actually check for the virus itself. So we'll be using some of this, and it takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes when you use it. We will, as soon as we get it, our intention is to deploy this more to the hinterland communities, so they will be able to do the tests on the spot, so to speak, or at the point where care is delivered. And we believe by doing so it would make a big difference. However, while we will be using the antigen tests, if there is any doubt that the physicians who are using this test would have, then they can always do the swabs and send it out for a PCR test. So we're not because we'll be doing antigen testing means that we will stop doing PCR testing. Antigen testing will just complement what we have. But I want the public to understand the difference between an antigen test and an antibody test, because antibody would appear after or during the period of the infection, and then more after you will see those antibodies remaining. So many times when you do an antibody test, and if it's positive, you know, it would probably show that you had the infection, not that you have active infection right now, but maybe you had the infection because we're detecting the antibodies. So the best way of diagnosing the COVID-19 is either to use the PCR, which is the gold standard, or to use these new antigen tests that are coming out.
Still ahead on the newsroom, the COVID-19 hospital should be up and running within a week, and investors eye the Bauxite Deposit in Oriala. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching the newsroom. The Takuri Bauxite Deposit, located about 10 miles from Oriala in Region 6, is one of the largest untouched deposits in Guyana. Minister of Natural Resources Vikram Bharat, during a visit to the community on Monday, announced that he met with prospective investors to start developing bauxite in the area. Plans are also being talked about for the establishment of an aluminum plant to export value-added products instead of just raw materials. Isanella Patwa has the details.
Oriala, an indigenous community along the Currentine River in Region 6, depend heavily on farming and forestry mining. However, with the announcement by Minister of Natural Resources Vikram Bharat about plans to develop the Tarakuli Bauxite Deposit, the community is set to see massive developments in the health, education and transportation sector. Already, the government has engaged potential investors to develop the bauxite deposit, which is one of the largest remaining untouched bauxite deposits in the country.
There is an interest to develop the Tarakuli Bauxite Deposit. I was told recently, as a matter of fact, I met a few investors who are willing to come and to develop the Tarakuli Bauxite Deposit. It is one of the largest bauxite deposits remaining in our country that is untouched. And from the studies that would have been done and information that I've received, the bauxite is of a very high quality. So the interest is there from investors to come and to do mining in this area.
The minister also announced plans to develop an aluminum plant as the government aims to add value-added products to the export market.
For too long, we have been exporting raw materials. We haven't been exporting value-added products. And you would know that when you export value-added products, you earn maybe 10 times more than when you export the logs or the raw material. When you export one log and you make $60 off of that log, if you convert that log to value-added products, you make close to $6,000 from that very log. That is why adding value to our products is a priority for our government.
During the ministerial visit on Monday, households in Oriala and neighboring community Siparuta were also given their $25,000 COVID-19 cash relief. Further support was pledged to assist with health, farming and livestock and the development of the road from Kokwani in Region 10 to Oriala. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Isanella Patwell.
The UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, has recommended targeted interventions to support the most vulnerable households affected by the COVID-19 emergency employment and cash transfers in Guyana. The FAO's recommendation came from a survey completed in July and August to determine the impact of the pandemic on the agriculture sector. The newsroom spoke with FAO's representative, Dr. Gillian Smith, via Zoom, where she disclosed that farmers and fishers, vendors and food traders faced loss of income, labor shortage, and limited access to markets.
If there are a few clear messages from this report, I can probably give you 3 or 4. The first one is that we're very clear. People are hurting, particularly the most vulnerable persons. And remember, I told you that this snapshot was between July and August of this year. Small farmers and fishers were seeing loss of markets or a reduction of their markets that were available to them. Crop farmers were seeing market unreliability and instability. Normally, patterns of purchase were just not seen, patterns of purchase that they saw in the past, they were not seeing anymore. And livestock farmers were noticing that they were having issues with inputs, not just availability of inputs, but they were having a hard time affording inputs as well. Studies such as this one have the opportunity to help countries such as Guyana to be able to understand what are the differentiated needs. Not everybody, as we've seen, has been impacted in the same way. When we have an idea of how many people or what percentage or proportion of stakeholders are affected and how they are affected, we can do much more targeted, we can develop much more targeted programs to help support those persons. It is possible that some people may benefit from input supplies, but other people need things that are much more fundamental and basic than that. This isn't going to change very quickly. COVID is with us for a while. And I think that it is very important for us to ensure that our food and our food safety standards and our trade profile allows us to continue to expand into new markets.
The Infectious Diseases Hospital at Liliendale, East Coast Demerara will finally be operational within a week, removing the burden from the Georgetown Public Hospital. Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony on Tuesday during his daily COVID-19 update with the Department of Public Information said that patients will soon be transferred to the facility along with the relevant medical personnel.
Well, our expectations are that this week we should be able to substantially complete the ICU at Ocean View. Most of the things are in place, and so the staff at the Georgetown Hospital and the contractors there are trying to finish off the ICU. So by the end of the week, we should have substantially completed the ICU facilities there, and then we'll start the process of transferring patients across to that facility. The wing where we have milder patients, we probably have about 20 or so patients there. But as we now bring other parts of the facility under operation, so for example, the ICU, we would be able to accommodate between 25 to 29 ICU beds, which is quite a large amount because our current capacity at Georgetown Hospital would be around 14. So we'll have a substantially bigger ICU, and all the medical personnel and everybody would be available at the facility. So that's what we're working on. The overall bed in the Ocean View facility would be about 199 beds. So, you know, if we have patients that require admission, then we'll be able to keep them safely in that facility.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports along with sport. Welcome back to the newsroom. We start things off with some football news. The Ghana Football Federation is engaged in discussions on the best option to take if they are granted approval by the COVID-19 task force to resume on-field activities. President Wayne Ford explained on Tuesday that the Federation wants to make the best practical decision given on-field activities have been dormant for about 11 months. More details in this Akim Green report.
The long layoff from the pitch is a reason as to the uncertainty of the best approach to take. The restrictions of groupings and closure of gyms would have affected the top footballers in Guyana being able to access proper training facilities.
We're having discussions that centered around two things primarily. The first thing is, what can we do between now and the 31st of December, the time that we have? What are the objectives? Do we need to focus on a single tournament? Should we be focusing on football in a festival format where we can touch each and every age group, boys and girls? What do we do? Because we're simply coming out of an extensive dormancy period, and maybe the opportunity is here to just reactivate on-field activity across the widest possible spectrum of the Guyana football family. So those are the decisions that are taking place internally with the technical staff.
The new COVID-19 measures state that sporting events are permitted subject to the approval of the Minister of Health and in compliance with any guidelines that the Ministry of Health may issue. Every person or organizer hosting an approved sporting event shall be responsible for ensuring that the measures under the notice, as well as the guidelines that the Ministry of Health may issue, are complied with. According to Ford, based on what requirements they will have to meet, they can then decide on the best way to restart the sport.
What measures and protocol will we have to engage in order to do whatever we decide to do safely? As we all are aware, there continue to be a rise in the positive cases for COVID-19, and we have to be very mindful of that. I'm sure that when we submit our application to the task force, they would want to have a careful examination of the measures that the GFF will be proposing to take. Those measures obviously are related to what we do. If we're doing a tournament, what level of spectators can we have? Will we be able to have any spectators at all? How do we keep the players safe? Because most of our players are going to be traveling in public transportation at a high frequency to get to the venues. Once we are through with the internal planning and technical discussions and we have an idea of the decisions that we're likely going to be taking, then we will open up that conversation to a broader community of stakeholders.
While there is great desire to see football again on the pitch in Guyana, the GFF president said all must be conscious of the current situation and operate in a practical manner.
There is no shortage of enthusiasm. We all want to see some on-field activities. Every player wants to play football. I want to see a good football game. You want to see a good football game. But we have to be mindful. I don't believe that when the task force lifted the restriction on sport activity, they expected that sporting federation and association would just recklessly engage into competition and other on-field activities that would put their members and players and officials at risk. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to temper that enthusiasm. Clearly the objective is to get something happening. What we do will be the critical decision and how we do it.
In September, the GFF had stated they remain hopeful it can organize some on-field activities before the end of the year, with the annual season-ending Super 16 Cup being the target. For the newsroom, Akim Green.
We now join Akram Green with the rest of the Sportcast.
We turn our attention to some cricket news now. All members of the West Indies touring party in New Zealand have cleared the first of their 3 COVID-19 tests, which was conducted 3 days after their arrival on October 30th. According to a release from New Zealand Cricket, the West Indies contingent will undergo 2 more tests on days 6 and 12 of their 2-week quarantine at the New Zealand High Performance Centre at Lincoln University in Christchurch. Having returned negative results in their first test, the players and staff will no longer be required to stay in isolation in their respective rooms. They will be allowed to train, gym and socialize within 3 bubbles comprising of a maximum of 15 members each from days 4 to 7. From days 8 to 14 of their quarantine, the West Indies camp can split into 2 bubbles comprising of a maximum of 20 members each. 7 members of the 35-strong playing contingent will only arrive in New Zealand after conclusion of the IPL, which ends on November 10th in the UAE. These 7 players, of whom 6 are a part of the T20 squad, will end their quarantine on the eve of the first T20 in Auckland, which is set to take place on November 27th. West Indies are the only international team to have embarked on 2 overseas tours since the worldwide pause in global cricket brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. West Indies will play 3 T20s in all, followed by 2 test matches in Hamilton from December 3rd to 7th and Wellington from December 11th to the 15th. For the newsroom, Akim Green. In the IPL, Sunrisers Hyderabad have sealed a place in the Indian Premier League playoffs after they defeated Mumbai Indians by 10 wickets in a final preliminary match at a Sharjah Cricket Stadium on Tuesday. After a fine all-round bowling performance, this play helped Sunrisers to restrict Mumbai to 149 for 8. David Warner and Ridhaman Saha, with an unbroken opening stand, powered Sunrisers to victory. Warner made 85 from 58, striking 10 fours and 1 6, while Saha made 45 ball 58 with 7 fours and a 6. It helped Sunrisers seal the win with 11 balls remaining. Earlier, Rohit Sharma returned to the Mumbai team to lead, but only made 4. Mumbai looked on building a big total, but lost key wickets at crucial intervals. Suryakumar Yadav and Ishan Kishan made 36 and 33 respectively, but it was Kieron Pollard who slammed 41 off 25 balls to guide Mumbai to the eventual total. Mumbai will play Delhi Capitals in Qualify 1 on Thursday, while Sunrisers will face Royal Challengers Bangalore in the Eliminator on Friday. In some cricket again, West Indies Test team will again be under pressure to topple New Zealand in the upcoming 2 tests. Based on the performances in England, head coach Phil Simmons feels it will take a huge effort for the regional side to defeat the hosts. More in this report. West Indies had gone to England as holders of the prize Brazen Trophy in July and delivered a serious blow to England when they won the first test at Southampton. It was the first time since 2007 against South Africa that a regional side had won the first test of a series away from home against a higher-ranked nation. They head to New Zealand having not won a test series there since 1995, and happens to be the last time they also won a test in the country. For such fortunes to change, Simmons is saying it will take an Herculean effort.
We're trying to build up and continue to build up, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. We have to take that Southampton performance and just try and see what are the points we need to work on to better that. And we have to better, because I think everybody, as you say, is very difficult to beat teams at home now, and we have to be able to play as best a cricket as we can play on each given day in any test match to be able to beat the teams high up on the table, of which New Zealand is one of them. So I think we're going to try and take a lot of points from Southampton, but we have a lot of improving to do in order to beat New Zealand.
Some of the West Indian cricketers had arrived in New Zealand on October 30th after a 54-hour journey from Barbados. They began training in small groups today and are still under the 14-day quarantine. The first of 3 T20s will start on November 27th, followed by 2 tests, which will start on December 3rd. New Zealand are ranked number 2, as opposed to West Indies at number 8 on the ICC test rankings. For the Newsroom, Akim Green.
And with that, we've come to the end of this evening's newscast. On behalf of the news and technical teams, I'm Kurt Campbell saying have a pleasant evening.